Hi, and welcome to my session, How to Make a Conference App in Less Than 30 Minutes. Um, this is short about me. My name is Louisa. Originally, I'm from Germany. Currently, I live in Belgium with friends. As you can see, I wanted to introduce myself in JSON style because I always say, of course, my favorite number is 42, so I'm a little bit of a nerd, but usually I would describe myself as a very technical person. So usually this would be a false, but I decided to say, hey, I'm working on that. I'm an MVP for Office Apps and Services, and in my day-to-day life, I work as an Office 365 consultant, focusing on strategy, the art of teamwork, and simplifying business processes. So today's session is about how to make a conference app in less than 30 minutes with Power Apps. And if you want to tweet about it, use the hashtag Let's Code More Power. Okay. So as you can see, I can talk even faster than I could just write JSON code. Perhaps I'm going to improve this later on. Of course, I'm well prepared and I pre-recorded something for you so that we can just skip some steps that are not very necessarily to do in the actual time itself. So purpose of my app so far is I want to display sessions of a conference. I, of course, want to rate these sessions and I want to display a Twitter feed of that. So this is my minimal viable product. And if I say I want to rate sessions, this means that I somehow want to record all those session ratings. And first, of course, I come from a SharePoint background. I thought, hey, just use a SharePoint list. And I've been educated that SharePoint list isn't the best way to store data just because the SharePoint lists of the sites they don't relate to each other. And this means that it's harder and harder to get more in-depth insights to the data. So I chose the Common Data Service to store my information in. Please make sure that you always use a new publisher when you have a new Power Platform solution. And I was like, wait, what? And then the Mike Hartley said, hey, friends, don't let friends use the default publisher. Always create your own prefix. And then I needed to dig into that. And I'm quite sure that I will come up with a video, especially about that. But what you can see is I am creating a new solution and I will create a new publisher, and it's the M365 Princess publisher because I am the M365 Princess. And just what I do is I just add this publisher to my solution, which ensures that I get a nice prefix so it can easily be identified as my solution when I work on larger scale projects. So what I do right now is I create a new entity. If you're not familiar with this term, an entity, this is just like an Excel spreadsheet. So we're just creating a table where we can store information in. So the table is here. And what I do right now is I add some fields. And the fields are rating overall, rating regarding the timing, the audience interaction, the content, the speaker skills, and so on. And perhaps you might see that I always define a data type called whole number. This is very important to know because in my app later on, I don't want to have a rating like multiple lines of text, but I just want the user to define a number to say, hey, this was a good session or the session was not that good. So let's say from 1 to 5. And to be even more able to distinguish between them, it's mandatory to have the right data type. So after we made our CDS entity, which was quite easy, we would just make an app. And perhaps you might have seen it's not very much time left. So let's get into that right now. So we click on create, canvas from blank. We give it a more meaningful name. I chose the phone layout, and now Power Apps is making me an app. So what you can see here is an empty canvas and one screen, which is entitled with screen one. So let's first work on that. I want to have a nice background picture. Of course, I prepared something for you. I make it fill my whole screen. I rename my screen to home screen. As I can't upload a CSS file or something like that to just define how all my buttons, my font sizes, and so on will look like, I chose to go the very easy way. And the very easy way is just to choose a theme. You can, of course, define your own colors, font sizes, and so on. But I wanted to really make a quick app, and for me, it worked quite fine. You would do the same thing working in PowerPoint as well. So I just click on themes. I select the dark blue theme as it comes nicely with my dark blue background and did it. If I now add some icons for my navigation, just like home and like dislike and a calendar icon and so on, you see that it already matches the color of my background picture, which is quite nice. So I do not even need to care about the design. I align my icons like I would do that in PowerPoint as well. So a friend of mine always says Power Apps is just the love story between Excel, like data, here it is in CDS, and PowerPoint, so design, make it pretty as well. So I distributed that horizontally and moved it to the bottom of my screen. And what we're now going to do is adding some logic to it, because in my home screen, there is no need to click on a home icon, which should navigate me to a home screen because I'm already on that home screen. So I will just disable that. And disable means you can't click on it and it's grayed out. So users are already familiar with that design concept. Next thing I'm going to do is I duplicate this screen. Why would I do that? Because I want to use the background picture and the navigation elements I already have in place. So to connect to our data, we need to find the Outlook connector. As you might know, I want to have a conference app, and I use data from my Outlook calendar. How do I do that? It's quite easy. I downloaded ICS files from that conference and save them to a specific calendar in my Outlook. And this Outlook calendar is called Events. And as we are in the data sources tab to connect to data, we can already grab the Twitter connector as well, just because then we don't need to do that later on. Okay, let's see how this goes. It's quite easy. We click on data, we search for Outlook, we find Office 365 Outlook, we connect to our account, we search for Twitter, we add Twitter, boom. So what we now need to do is we need to create a drop-down field which shows us all our calendars that we have in our Outlook. So perhaps you have a work calendar, a personal calendar, an events calendar, and so on. I want to get all my calendars. And I do this by just inserting a drop-down field and set the items property, so which items should be shown in this drop-down field, to a formula which shows me all these calendar tables. And it's just got Office 365 Outlook dot calendar get tables value. So let's see how I came up with that. So how could I know? So apart from reading docs.microsoft.com, it's quite easy. You type in the name of your connector, and after that, a full stop. So just like a dot. And after you have that, you can just see what shows up and fill in the blanks. As you might see, there's nothing in this drop-down field. I expected some values inside of it, just like the names of my calendars, but there's nothing in it. And I was worried at first. But it's quite nice. I just need to change from name to display name back and forth and to refresh the data, and then it's already there. What I now want to do is I want to filter this drop-down field. So this drop-down field, I don't want it to be a drop-down field, but it should just show the value of my calendar that I want to use for this app. As you might remember, it's called events. So I use a filter function and say, filter, please, this table here, and the filter, the logical test is display name equals events. If I do so, it will always display my events calendar. And as I don't need to see this drop down field later on, and you will see in a minute why I don't need to see that, I set the visibility property of this item to false. So true means yes, it is visible. False means no, it is not visible, but it's still there. So as a user, I can't see it. As an editor of this app, I can, of course, edit and modify it like the way I want it. Okay. Next thing, we disable the sessions icon because we are on the sessions screen, and we enable the home icon. So just a little bit of that. You would do the same thing in other apps as well. And now we want to create a gallery. So full stop. What is a gallery? A gallery is the visual representation of a table, so of data in a table. So which table do I mean? As you might have noticed, a calendar with events, so with sessions in it, is a table as well. So I just want to more nicely display all those sessions. I don't want to have a calendar view, but I just want to have a nice list. So I just go ahead and say, hey, please make me a vertical gallery. And Power Apps asks me, hey, do you want to connect to your Office 365 Outlook calendar? And I say, hell yes, this is exactly what I want to do. So what I do right now is I define where the data comes from. So I'm in my gallery and there is an items property, and I say, hey, please use the Office 365 Outlook, then a full stop, calendar get items. So this is actually the function that I want to use. And the function says, hey, first, you need to provide me the table. So where is the information? Which calendar? And it is the events calendar. And where have I typed events in my drop down field? Because I already have a filter there in place, which says, hey, please show me only the events calendar from all your calendar you have in your Outlook. So what I just do is I say, hey, please get me all calendar items from the selected name of this drop down field, which is called drop down one. That's it. Always dot value. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do, pretty up my screen because I need to have at least a title. And say it's called My Sessions. And I do tricky droppy and clicky clacky. And of course, here I center that, and perhaps I will increase the font size and change the color of that and the font weight. I will enlarge that a little bit. And now I need to define my fields. So perhaps you might have seen in the navigation bar on the left-hand side, I have this gallery and there's a separator. So this is this small line between my items. I have a next arrow. So this is this icon here. And I do have a title, an image, and a subtitle. I don't want an image. I do want to have a title and a subtitle and the text. So what I'm going to do is right now I selected the title, and the title is defined to, it should show this item. So this row of my represented data source, and there it shows the body preview. So body preview comes from our Outlook calendar, and it's shown here. I don't want to see it now. What I do want to see is I want to have the subject. So what I do is dot subject, and I can just select it with my mouse as well. Next thing is that I'm going to change the subtitle should not be the preview or the change key or a time zone because this doesn't make any sense. But I do want to have the start time. So what I say here, oh, I didn't say that. I said body preview, but I'm just working on the subtitle. So what I'm now going to do is I change the layout, and now I have a subtitle, and I changed this to please start time. And then I just concatenate that with an ampersand and say dash this item dot end. And it looks bloody ugly. So I don't want that. So I'm going to improve the date format. And the date format should be hour of this item start, concatenate with a colon, minute, this item dot start. I concatenate again, a dash, then the hour of this item end, a colon, and the minute of this item end. And perhaps you see that this causes a problem, because if the minute of an item equals 0, I only have one 0, but I want to have a second 0. So let's see how we could do that. Let's see how we could manipulate this. So I want to create an if function, which says if the minute of start equals 0, then please type 00 as a text, which is why it is in quotation marks. And otherwise, just do the minute of this item start. And the same is for the end time. So if the minute of this item end equals to 0, then 00 in quotation marks, otherwise just the minute of this item dot end. And two closing brackets. Perfect. This looks so much nicer. Now I'm going to sort my sessions by start time. So right now it's by alphabet. I don't want that, but I just want to show them up chronologically. Okay, so what did we do? We used 5 minutes to create a nice visual representation of our calendar in a nice app, and we already have the navigation in place. So what we now do is we will just duplicate the sessions screen, as we want to do something very, very similar for our Twitter screen. Okay, I already duplicated this. I will rename to Twitter. I will change the title label, because always label correctly makes it so much easier to recognize what's in. I say, hey, I want to have the hashtag MSBuild on Twitter. So what I do is I knick-knack here the icons for my navigation, and now I'm going to display these tweets in my gallery. What I'm going to do is I need to connect to Twitter. So the Twitter connector is already enabled in my app, but I didn't say to this gallery, hey, please, dear gallery 1_1, which is an awful name for a gallery, but please, dear gallery, display my Twitter feeds. And if I try to type the first letters of Twitter, you can already see twitter.follows, twitter.following, twitter.home timeline, and so on. So I can just choose what I want to show. And I chose twitter.search_tweet. And I chose to show tweets about MSBuild, which is the hashtag of the conference. So what I do now is for title, subtitle, and body, I just chose the tweeted by, the user location, and the tweet text. And I drag and drop a little bit so it looks a little bit nicer, showing more of the tweet text. And now I want to use something which takes me out of this app. So I don't want to recreate the whole Twitter client, but if I click on that tweet or on an icon next to the tweet, I want to open Twitter on mobile or Twitter on the web if I'm on Windows or Mac. So what you need to know to do that is the syntax of the tweet URL. And it's always twitter.com/ then the username /status, another slash, and then the tweet ID. And now guess what? The tweeted by and the tweet ID, this is data you already have in place because the Twitter connector provides you with that. So I just use the launch function, and the launch function is just like launch and then the URL. So the URL is twitter.com. Yep, with a slash, quotation marks, and again I concatenate. So concatenating, you may know this from Excel, just means stitching things together. And I say tweeted by, and another ampersand / status / and another ampersand for the tweet ID. And there it is. So let's test that out. I did that on the unselect property of this little arrow icon. I press the Alt key, which always means I try to test. And as you can see, I opened the right tweet. Okay, second screen, done. we will create a new screen. So for the very first time, I do not just duplicate a screen that is already in place, but I create a new screen. And why would I do that? Because I want to benefit from a template that is already in place in Power Apps. So I click on new screen and then I select form, as I want to have a form and I'm too lazy to just build that from scratch. So I can use that. First things first, make it pretty. So I will just fill with my background picture. After I did that, I copy paste my navigation items, so the icons, and I disable them accordingly, so that a user does not need to click on session ratings if he or she is already on session 8 ratings. And after that, I need to pretty things up. So really just a little bit doesn't hurt. So this is not a design workshop, but I want to get rid of this bar here. Yeah, I choose the same same position for that gallery as for the form. And I change the text of the label, which is session ratings. And now comes the magic, because now I want to connect this form to my CDS entity. So the goal is whenever someone submits this form with session ratings, the ratings will be recorded in my CDS entity. Okay, so it's not as hard as you might think. It's just 2 clicks. I click none. At data source, I just connect to my CDS, and that's it. So the only thing I need to do now is changing the default mode of my form. So default is on edit, but I need to have it on new, because otherwise a user can't submit a new form if he or she clicks on session ratings. So this is very mandatory, because otherwise it won't show up. What we now need to do is we need to change the session name field to a drop-down field. So I don't want the user to just put in any value there, but only the values that come from my Outlook calendar. So only the sessions that I downloaded before. So perhaps you remember, where do we have that function where we already defined this? So first I make this an allowed value field. It's just like in Excel. If you click data validation, you can only allow certain values, which means that you're more able to filter your data and get in-depth insights instead of searching manual stuff. So this can be just a little bit frustrating if you don't know what you do. So let me guide you through these steps, as they are not very intuitive. What I do right here is I say in this data card, I click on Edit Fields Advanced. I unlock this property. I change the display name. That's easy. And now I need to define the allowed values. And the allowed values, it's exactly the formula that we were already using. We said Office 365 Outlook get calendar get items, and which calendar, the one of the selected name of our drop down menu, which is always events, because we set a filter on that. And because I want to have a certain order of this data, I'm sorting this by start time as well. Okay, but as you see, Power Apps is not happy. So whenever something is red, it's not happy. So it says you need to put some work in that. And perhaps you might see a session name that is called Join Seth and Donna as they la la la. This is not, probably not, the subject of an event, but it's the body preview. And this is what you can see here right now as well. So the value is body preview by default, and we don't want that. We want subject. So welcome to Microsoft Build. So this is a typo. The update property, we need to change that to subject as well, because otherwise it would not work. And yes, this is documented under docs.microsoft.com. Okay. as I don't want to have a user who just needs to type in a 4 or a 5 for a session rating. I want beautiful rating stars, which are more easily to be clicked even on mobile. So what I do is I will just change how I will display the number. And therefore, it was very mandatory that we chose in our CDS entity that it is a whole number data field and not a text. So we will now put some work on the display names. I could have done this in CDS as well. I didn't do that. So now this is the pain that comes from not doing the work in CDS, but in Power Apps, I first need to unlock all those properties to be able to edit that. And there is no unlock all feature. But as you can see, it's quite a case. Power Apps just wants to protect you from changing things that you shouldn't change. So when I want to submit a form, or after a user submits a form, he should see a success screen. And lucky us, there is a template for a success screen already available. So what I will do is I will insert the screen. I say, hey, please set a background. I didn't like the brightness here of this button, so I just changed the key to 80% and change the text as well. So thank you for submitting your feedback. You're awesome, or something like that. And after I did that, I said, okay, after submitting all that form, please navigate to success screen. And then I said the next line of code, which is reset my form. So these are 3 lines of code. It's quite easy. First, submit form. After that, navigate to success screen. And after that, reset my form so I can, if I like to, submit another feedback for another session, perhaps. Okay, for the cancel button, please just navigate to the home screen. Navigate, home, closing brackets, that's it. Some final touches on the navigation. If there is an icon, it needs to know where it should navigate to. And as you can see, navigate has only one argument. So you just type in navigate, opening brackets, and then just the name of your screen. And therefore, it's nicer if you name your screens. So if it's called the session screen, so it's always easier for you to do so. And as you can see, this is the on select property of each icon. So an icon, as every item in Power Apps, has a lot of properties, and one of them is the on select, which just means so if the user taps it or clicks it, then this is the thing that should happen. Okay, you see me doing that. And again, and I even pre-recorded this. Okay, so now all we need to do is copy pasting the navigation icons to our success screen, because the journey shouldn't end there. The user shouldn't be forced to open or close and open the app again, but to be able to navigate from here as well. So I disable, enable accordingly. Here everything should be enabled, because this is not a screen that you can navigate to. It's only that you will be navigated to it after you submitted the session feedback. So what if something is not working in my form? So the form is broken, the internet is broken, the conference is broken, something just went wrong. So I want the user to know that something went wrong, if something went wrong. So what I do is I use the notify function of a form, which just says, hey, this works, if it worked. So notification type is now success, which is green. And on failure, so if something did not work well, it should be display something went wrong. And the notification type is notification type.arrow, which means it's red. So our home screen still looks a little bit empty. what I would do is I say, hey, make it your MS Build. I found this a nice title for my app. I center this. I increase the font size. Perhaps a little bit more could be nice as well. Ah, see, this works so much better. What we now do is we publish our app. So I go File, Save, I publish, and after I did that, I would just try it out. So this is my calendar. This is the session rating. Yes, it worked. I go on my home screen. I go to Twitter. I open a tweet. Boom, it works. I think it's time to celebrate it because with pre-recording, we needed 17 minutes. To be very honest, the very first time I did that, I used more than 2 hours. The second time was under 30 minutes. So I think we made it. Thank you.